do we find truth from? Where does truth come from? How do we know something is true?
Wow.
Is it science? Is
Deep.
it philosophy? What is it?
Deep right off the bat.
Yeah.
Honestly, in my opinion, I think truth is a human construct.
Okay.
Yes, there can be a truth to, certain situations of what actually happened, but I don't think, people who didn't actually experience it will actually know the truth at any given point. And I think people can butcher the truth at times, quite often. So technically, I don't know. In my opinion, I think at the end of the day, there is no actual true form of truth. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
We really talked about that.
Is there anything that's true for every person?
For every
in the
person?
entire world? Like every human being, is there anything that's true for every one of them?
One truth I would say is that they are a human being.
Okay.
But as far as we know...
So, that's true. Is that just a human construction? Or is that...
No, in that, I guess there are certain, aspects of it that can be, I guess biologically true.
Okay, sure.
I think truth is a human construct when it comes to, social aspects of that.
Okay.
Or just like kind of like happenings or occurrences throughout each and every day.
Okay. But you said that, like, obviously particular events, like there's a truth value to the fact that you woke up and brushed your teeth this morning.
Right.
Or at least I'm assuming you did.
Exactly.
And so there's a truth value to that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe like social political problems are in this kind of nebulous space where there's no truth value to them. It's just kind of like, what is it, based on opinion or something?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of, biased things out there and things based off opinion. And you're going to resonate with a certain side that you can connect with more. Okay. Just based on how, your environment was growing up, how you were raised and everything. You're going to choose those different opinions, and you're going to choose specific truths that you're going to resonate with more.
Okay, so you kind of gravitate towards your like innate temperament.
Right. Something that you feel more comfortable and connected to is what you're going to stay more attached to, especially when it comes to truth values.
So I assume with that we're talking about political parties?
Political, anything really, I think.
Religious affiliation?
I think it can be religious too. I'm not a religious man myself.
Yeah.
But I know that people are definitely connected to those things in many different ways. And, people are, all different religions are going to have, their own God. They're going to have different views on their God and, how destiny is actually manifested. Because it can be in many ways according to lots of, different people and just, legends and everything like that. So,
can science, like a let's say a replicable study that's been peer reviewed, is that something that can be considered true?
I think so. I mean, if it's science, and that's because, for me personally, not being a religious man myself, I look at a lot of things with a, I guess, scientific point of view. Yeah. So with that question, I'd say yes.
Okay. Oh, shoot. I forgot to clap. Could you clap so I can sync the audio? Yeah. I should still do it. Okay. So science is, there's a sense of truth in science because of its replicability, because it's observable by multiple parties, something like that. So shouldn't everyone just become rational scientists?
No, not necessarily. I think you can, I guess, follow through with what you believe in mostly, and a lot of reasons why people are they believe in these guys and everything is because of how they're raised and where they come from. If you're born into a religious family, you're most likely going to be religious later on in life too. Okay. Or at least that goes for everyone I've known who's been religious, but that can definitely play differently throughout different families and whatnot. That will lead you to that standpoint. So.
Okay. Is there like a purpose to science? Like, is there a reason why people do science?
I think, which I think this goes for both religion and science. I think they were both established so that we could explain the unexplainable, or at least we can I mean, science more specifically is just trying to find answers to questions that we've had for a millennia, and just things that we want to figure out. And it is very interesting because this also leads to like human advancement, technological advancement, and everything. Without science, I mean, we wouldn't be anywhere. It's really gotten us places and everything. I don't necessarily know if the same can be said for religion, but I know there are plenty of, communities out there that people have found their way through God and everything, and it's really kind of, changed them for the better.
It's
so
giving them comfort.
Right, give them comfort.
Or weave the community together in some way.
Right, knowing that you're part of this other group and everything, which I can give a lot of respect to that. So.
Okay, but knowing the nature of the universe can really only be understood through quantitative methods such as science and mathematics. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And would you say that the process of understanding the world is a good thing? Like, it's good that we're doing that? There's a purpose for why they're pursuing the world in that way, and that's a good purpose? Or it's a good
I'd definitely say it's a good purpose because this can give us knowledge so that we can kind of implement that into today's society for future generations, and we can make them live more comfortably too. I just know about hearing all these harder stories and everything about, you hear about World War II. I mean, even 100 years ago, life was hard. But, people, one thing I will say, people stayed persistent on continuing the human race and evolving it into what we are today, and we're going to continue to do the same thing for future generations. So having science is a good purpose, I think.
Okay, and I'm definitely not trying to trap you or anything. I'm just trying to push on you.
No, you're good.
So if science is a good thing and it creates technology that alleviates suffering and help people live more comfortable lives, how do we know that alleviating suffering is good if we can't prove it scientifically? Like, how do we know that something is good or bad if it can't be put under a microscope necessarily? Or can it?
I think we know if it's good or bad based on the ultimate results of it, and how they affect the general population and everything. There may be some people in particular that don't agree with some of the systems we have, like, for example, like anti-vaxxers and whatnot.
Sure.
Ultimately, this is a good thing because, it's for the better good and everything. But, there's a few sticks in the mud or whatever that they're kind of just like, I don't really agree with that or whatever. I don't want that stuff being put into my body. So I think that could be a good example of that. But I think that we're doing most of this for the general good because we truly believe that this is going to benefit us in the end.
Okay. So, what if we use our science and we use our technology to, let's say in China, they've created these large surveillance systems using very advanced technology, whether that be software, certain types of cameras that are very small and effective to just survey the whole area all the time. And that's some crazy technology. And in their view, they're making things better because they're more able to enforce their kind of law and social hierarchies and stuff. But in a certain sense, and I think a lot of people would agree that there's something wrong about that level of surveillance and that level of enforcement. Yes. And so, how do we know that's wrong if they're using this technology
and they think it's right?
Yeah, it's
kind of like the whole good guy bad guy dilemma.
Sure.
The bad guy is going to be, they think they're doing the right thing, but the good guy thinks they're doing the right thing. But on the other hand, the bad guy thinks that the good guy is a bad guy. And I think that's all based on cultural preferences and how you were raised. Okay. And obviously, our culture is completely different from that in China. Yeah. So we're going to be looking at this what the hell are they doing,
Yeah.
But they're probably looking at us like we don't have enough surveillance.
Yeah.
And asking us what the hell are we doing.
Some of them, what would you say to someone in China who dreads it, who doesn't even want to go outside because they don't want to lose they have a point system, social hierarchy based on surveillance. would you say that their opinion is wrong because they should abide with the culture that they're in?
Absolutely not. And I don't think any opinion is right or wrong because, at the end of the day, we think we're doing what is right.
Yeah, but isn't in saying that like an opinion? Like,
yeah, no, most definitely it is.
So how do you deal with that kind of contradiction?
There's not necessarily a way to deal with it. It's kind of just it's kind of just how it is, unfortunately. There's not really much changes we can do, especially over here. Especially with things like surveillance systems. I can't go up to the Chinese government and be like, what are you guys doing? I can't go up to my own government and be like, what are we doing? We have enough.
Maybe there's there's a certain ethical boundary where it's like, okay, we don't really have the right to go into another society and tell them how to do things.
Right. I think most definitely.
But I mean, we did that in Nazi Germany. Would you say that we were wrong in doing that, or was that they were wrong enough to where it was justified?
As messed up as this seems, I think the Nazis were ultimately doing something that they felt was right. They wanted to rid of the Jews, the Holocaust and everything. Obviously, that's an awful thing because human life, and I would assume most countries, most cultures around here would look at this as a negative thing that they did. Because and I think that is something that connects us in similar ways. And obviously, Germany's a lot different now.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to trap you or anything. This is just coming to mind because I know near the beginning of this conversation we established maybe one of the universal truths is that everyone is human. Mm-hmm. But in Nazi Germany, they didn't believe that Jewish people were in fact human in some crucial sense. And so, would they be wrong?
Yeah, they were wrong.
Okay. Oh yeah. I'm not trying to push you into a corner or anything.
No, absolutely.
So is there any more universal truths than just the fact that everyone's a human being, or is that it?
We're all on the same rock. Okay, we're all trying to do the better good, according to our own, I guess, establishments and whatnot. At the end of the day, but I really do think at the end of the day we're just trying to conquer and gain power because that is what humans have always tried to do since the beginning of time.
Okay.
And I think we're doing that more subtly now, but it's still very much abundant in today's society.
Okay, so is basically the motivation for everyone, even if they don't explicitly see that, is just to get power?
Yeah, essentially. We're all trying to make it to the top in one way or another.
Okay.
Whether we want to say that or not,
Okay.
Everyone, or at least most people, they want to be successful.
So, do you think anybody ever says something true because it is true, or are they just saying it because they want to use that truth instrumentally to try to gain power?
I don't know. It depends on your ethics and your morale. But I'd honestly say a little bit of both, depending on the specific situation that you're put in.
Okay. So, a little bit of both. Is there... Because does it apply to everyone? Like, is everyone... Because I think that's what we just said. Like, everyone secretly, implicitly... Or not secretly, but implicitly at least, wants to gain power. And that's kind of their core motivation.
Yeah. I think it applies to everyone in one way or another.
Okay. But with it, that just makes me... It's tough for me to swallow because, I want to think that there's some people out there that they speak what they deem as true just because it's true and not just because they want to use their words instrumentally for some purpose.
And I'd love to think the same thing, that, people are being truthful, but I think it really just depends on who you are, who you know. If it's someone like my girlfriend, for example, we're going to be telling each other truths not to necessarily benefit ourselves, but because we are genuinely true with each other.
Yeah.
But if it's like a guy who's hiring me for a certain job that I want, I'm probably going to be kind of not necessarily butchering it, but saying truths that are going to ultimately benefit me.
Yeah.
So I really think it depends on who you're talking to, where you'll elicit that information.
Yeah.
And so I got until 3:30.
Okay. Yeah. So you can leave whenever you want. So if in a job interview or somewhere else, we use truths in order to kind of reach our ends or help us in certain ways, why shouldn't we use untruths? Why shouldn't we just lie in order to reach our ends?
I think lying can definitely be it can be beneficial in some ways.
Yeah.
the only reason I'd find myself lying is, well, first of all, I'll start off by saying I think the reason why a lot of people try and shy away from lying is because it's risky. They know they could get caught, and ultimately, the longer they are without their lie being exposed is going to just hurt them more, and it's just this long-term weight that's being kept onto you.
So it's like a weight of conscience that's
right,
that's burdening them.
Yes. So I can make like a little lie saying like someone's like oh no, like, did you go to the store today? I'll be like, yeah, I went, even though I didn't. Like simple stuff like that, like going to the store, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm only going to lie if I know they can't catch me. They cannot verify it, and they never will.
But you said it weighs on your conscience, and that in itself is a negative consequence.
Most definitely. But normally I'm not experiencing that because I don't really lie. But I definitely have in the past.
Yeah.
And it's definitely kind of kept that weight on me.
Is your conscience expressing something correct, or can your conscience be wrong?
I think it can be wrong because your conscience is also going to develop with your personality, and that's all affected by how you're raised and what environment you're consistently in. That I think can affect your own conscience and just the way you think about things.
Okay, so if your conscience can be falsely influenced by your environment, to what degree should you ever trust it? Or should you just only pay attention to it because it's making your life more painful?
I think it's good to pay attention to it, most definitely. If it's making your life painful, then the things to fix. But
what if it's not trustworthy? If it's just based on these
right,
kind of
based on your own information that you can. Then I'd say it's not always right to trust your conscience, but if you truly have a gut feeling about something, and again, this really depends on the situation you're in. If it's probably not going to hurt you, take a big leap. Do whatever you think is best for your own self. But
and is what you think is best, is that dictated by your conscience?
I think so. Yeah, most definitely. What you personally think is best is going to be based off your conscience. But also think about the general good and what other people may think, and think of other people and what decisions they would make in that situation. Think of other people you look up to, and think on how they would handle the situation as well. Okay. If you don't want to end up hurting yourself in the end.
Okay. Yeah, but sometimes your conscience does tell you selfless things, like a father's conscience might tell him to sacrifice himself for his daughter. Right?
Most definitely.
And that's not necessarily good for him.
Right.
And so is that kind of conscience like also selfless in a certain sense? Because and forgive me if I'm wrong, correct me, it just sounded like you were talking about the conscience as if it's almost self-regulatory. It's to do with oneself.
You want to watch us talk?
Oh, yeah, I think he's just listening.
Yeah. Will you repeat that again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
What? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the conscience just like self-preservational force, or is it attached to some higher selfless morality at some points in time?
At some points in time, I think most definitely.
Okay.
Because it truly does depend on the situation. Yeah. But other times it can definitely be a preserved sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really just depends on the given situation.
Okay.
But like you were saying, with like the dad sacrificing himself for his daughter, in what context? Like what situation are they in? If it's just a suicidal dad or whatever, that would be more selfless, because then the daughter would be, probably upset that her daughter's not dead.
Imagine some kind of situation where the father lays down his life in order to protect the daughter from being killed.
I think that's
and he is operating off of his conscience.
I'd say the conscience, in my personal opinion, is valid, because he's lived more years than she has, and it would be more unfair if he chose for his daughter to die instead of him.
Okay.
And you've seen it constantly in movies and everything, and it could probably be just this common trope of the older person dying for the others, one person dying to save a whole group of people.
Yeah.
Whatever is going to be more beneficial in the end.
So is that just like a trope, or is that like, because you mentioned what is most fair. Is that outside of himself?
No, it's most definitely a common trope because it's something that's culturally seen as well, like movies and everything like that. One example right now I can think of is like Avengers Endgame when Black Widow, she jumps off even Iron Man too, he saves the world and everything like that. And that is just this common trope that I feel like a lot of us have resonated with, and it's something that's cultural, it's something that's environmental, and that's going to affect people in different ways. But, over on the other side of the world, they may think otherwise.
Okay. So there's no consistencies in moral.
I go like 1 minute, by the way.
Yeah. You can leave whenever you want. But there's no like fully consistent like moral structure that can be applied to everyone.
I think a lot of it is. It truly is. I don't necessarily think there's any right or wrong because people are going to be doing what they think is right, even though others may think of it as well.
Okay, let's do a quick thought experiment before you go.
Okay.
What if everybody suddenly assimilated into each other and there was no other cultures? It was just one culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say there's a global government and there's just one culture. Is right or wrong in that culture just based on kind of arbitrary factors of what the people at the top or the people at the bottom think, or should there be a morality that's applied to everyone?
I think there should be, but at the end of the day, if we're all as one, we're going to be doing what everyone else thinks is right. But of course, if there's any outside forces, like anything from another universe or something that sees our system, it's just going to be different no matter what. Anyone can be doing what they think is right at the end of the day, but it may not actually be.
Okay.
So
fair enough. Yeah, I appreciate you being so. Just let me press you on these things. That's my job. It's just I'm asking people hard questions.
Yeah, no, it was a good conversation. I love deep talks like this, so this is definitely very interesting.
Well, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your name again?
Ethan.
Ethan, I'm Alex.
Alex.
Good to meet you, man.
It's good to meet you too, man.